Freaks, don't try this at home. Random acts of edging. There's my edge. Looks like there are about 12 spots that are not edged. What we're gonna do is a hit and run on that. We're not looking for quality, we're looking for quantity. I want to make a straight line down it. I'm not gonna find the groove because obviously it's probably pretty far back. And if I get done and no one came out and arrested me, like that guy looking at me funny, I'm gonna come over here. I don't know what I'm gonna do over here, but obviously anything is better than nothing. Shh, keep a secret. All right, here we go. The first thing you're going to notice is there's an awful lot of dust kicking up, and that is a reoccurring theme that will happen throughout this video. It was a dusty mess, and that's okay. Sometimes you just have to get dirty. The dirty jobs. Somebody has to do them. So this video is more of a how-to, or just to show you that it can be done with only a string trimmer. It's not the best way, the most efficient way. It's just something that I learned from my father in the 80s how to do this with, because that's how he edged and trimmed all his sidewalks. Once they came out with a string trimmer that would not die when you turned it on the edge, like it didn't starve it for gas. Once they invented a decent string trimmer, he started edging all of his sidewalks with his lawn service with these. And some of those were way overgrown, had never been cut. He'd pick up a new yard. You couldn't even ride a bicycle down the middle of the sidewalk without hitting grass. That's how overgrown they were. So the string trimmer that he could turn on its side and edge with was a huge game changer in the lawn care industry in the mid 80s. So that's how I learned how to do this, just from watching my father for a while, and then eventually him handing me the trimmer and teaching me how to go around trees and up against houses and things like that, to eventually turning it on its side and trying to lay a straight line edge down a sidewalk or driveway. And at first, I wasn't any good. It would cut up into the grass and it didn't look right. He'd be like, whoa, okay, hold on, you need more practice. And luckily for us, in Granite City, Illinois, there was a lot of places we could practice back in the 80s. Everything was overgrown. It looked like a disaster zone. Sometimes it still does. This is something that most people can pick up pretty quickly. I mean, you're going to make a lot of mistakes at first, but after hours of use, say 10 hours of using a trimmer on its edge, you can really develop the skill and the muscles. Now, that might not all happen in one day unless you joined a lawn service and they hired you in as the trimmer. Then you might put in 8 hours a day on it. But at first, you go out, you mess with it for an hour. The next day you're going to be sore, your forearms are going to be tired, and your hands might even be cramped a little bit. But the next day you went out, you'd be a little bit better. If you did that for a whole week, I guarantee that you'd be a lot better by the weekend. Almost a natural. You'd grab that trimmer, flip it on its side, look down, and the head would be angled perfectly for you. The motor would be right up here around your hip or wherever you need to hold it. It would just fall into place naturally from the days before. And there really isn't a right or wrong way to hold a trimmer. You're going to develop your own style. I've seen people hold them upside down, sideways, rested on their shoulders, almost behind their back. I've seen people going left-handed when they're right-handed, right-handed when they're left-handed. It's a preference thing. It's however it feels natural. It falls into place for you. So don't be scared to just let it go. It's also a little bit of how it makes your forearms and stuff kind of rest. So where you're not having to stress and grip it and hold it tight. Like, you don't want it to be heavy on you or wear you out by the time you get to the end of a sidewalk. You want it to just be kind of floating on you. So find that position. So as you can see, I started to lose the groove. It wasn't exactly a straight line. And I knew I wasn't going to be able to keep up with it the whole time. I was just making this video for you and for the fun of it. And so as I left the good yard, I was able to continue on with the groove because I had a reference point to see. And then as I got farther and farther away, I started to move over about a half inch or maybe a quarter inch each little section of the sidewalk. And it would become so tough and thick that I was just kind of wanting to stay where I could chop stuff off, or I'd be here all day. Look how I'm having to pick that out of there right now. I totally haven't found the edge right there in that spot, but what I did do is make a straight line right there, and so as far as I'm concerned, it's better because I'm just trying to clean it up. Now, once you get something like this done, where you have a straight line along there and it's not exactly back into the groove, you can just buzz along with your trimmer each time and take off another little half inch or whatever until it falls into the groove. You don't want to take off too much, and you definitely don't want it to be too crooked. So you're just trying to keep it straight along there. And so I think a little bit of improvement is better than nothing here. I'm having some fun. It's dusty, so that wasn't fun. It was also starting to concern me because I thought, when I have to blow this off, I'm going to create a dust tornado. It's kind of jacked up, but I guess it's better than it was. It's not exactly straight. You can see I got a little going in and out. Look at all the extra stuff I have here. Look at this, it got a little goofy here. Anything is possible. I don't feel like cleaning it up. Maybe this will just be it. Hit and run. Yeah, it would have been nice to just bail on out right then, but I'm one of those guys that once I start something, I have to go all the way through. Whether it takes me the whole day or 2 or 3 days, I'm going to finish the project. But I also procrastinate. Sometimes I don't start a project because I know that I'm going to want to go all the way through, and I'm like dreading it, putting it off. But once I get going, watch out. I'm going all the way, baby. Fun fact about this yard that I'm edging right now. There's a Quonset hut on the property that people live in. So somebody bought it from the Army depot, maybe in the 1950s. And then ever since then, different people have lived in there. My father had to cut this lawn a few times in the 80s, and I remember it. And in the 90s, when I took over this entire street, I cut on both sides of it and all the way down the block. There wasn't a single house on here except this one that I didn't cut regularly. And on occasion, though, people would move in here. It might just be like a rental place, and they would have me cut it for a year, and I had an edge on it, and so it looked good. But obviously that's long gone, right? But my point is that I feel natural on this block. I'm like a staple of the neighborhood. And I actually know who the people are that are in there right now, although I don't cut their yard for them. I know them by face and they see me out. So if they were to pull up at the house right then, I would feel comfortable saying, I just felt like doing your sidewalk for you. I'm not charging anything. And they'd be like, oh, okay, cool, because they've seen me plenty of times cutting all around them, and probably waking them up on a Sunday, right, sometimes. Because the yard that I do take care of on here is actually empty, so no one's living there. So it's one of those lawns that they still want it weekly. No one is living in there, and so if I get behind, I push off the lawns that don't have people in them to Saturdays and Sundays, because it's not going to bother anybody. I'm not going to disturb them, but I might disturb the neighbors. Did you notice that was a snow shovel that I keep on the truck all the time? And the reason for that is because it's so wide. It just picks up so much volume. And I find that throughout the season, I'm always like raking gumballs or blowing them off into a pile, and try and get those up with a little shovel or your hands or a rake. They're falling between the little blades of the rake and everything. So a snow shovel, you can just scoop up a whole bunch. And sometimes you get into areas, newer areas, where you haven't taken care of it for the people, and there's just a lot of debris. You rake it all out from underneath like trees and bushes, and then boom, you scoop it up with the snow shovel and pow, fill up the can with maybe 4 scoops instead of 10 or whatever. As you can see, we're starting to make some real progress here. I can sense that the end is near, but in this case, that's a good thing. So I'm going along the side of the sidewalk, and I decided I'm not going to take it that far back because I was getting a little worn out. I wanted to get things over with, so all I did was just take a few inches off the edge just to make it a straight line. And of course, like the freak that I am, I go right back down the groove of my good yard that I had just mowed. Why? I must have seen a little something hanging over the edge, and I thought, I'll just go right back down the whole thing, because that's what I do. And now here I'm going to go ahead and rake up this big mess, and you can see that I'm going to use my snow shovel to scoop it up quickly. I've learned a lot of things over the years, some secret tips that aren't really secrets, they're just trial and error, and one of them is scooping up as much as you can and getting it in the can without having to do a bunch of extra work. So look at that. 2 shovels full and we're done. But of course I'm going to be the freak and try and scoop up some of this dirt because, like I said, it's going to be a dusty mess. Watch out, neighborhood. Here we go. Boy, did I kick up a dust cloud. I mean, it was like a giant fog took over the whole neighborhood. If anyone was outside, they went back inside. If you were barbecuing out in the backyard, this stuff was settling on your food. It was a bad scene. So I decided not to do all the fine detail of blowing this off. I thought I have to let this stuff settle down a little bit. I mean, heck, it was even covering my truck. But yeah, if you were outside, you were running away. There's your finished product. I've seen better. I've seen worse. Heck, about 15 minutes ago I seen worse. Right here. Now, since I didn't get arrested for that, I don't want to, but I'm gonna hack on that one because I promised you I would. I was thinking about this. Anybody says anything, I'll just say, hey, I was paid by the city to clear the sidewalks. Or I'll just say, I'm the Good Samaritan. I'm cleaning all the sidewalks in town. Started with you guys. How convenient for you. How inconvenient for me.
But I don't care. I'm a freak. Freak edging 101. Here we go.
So as I go along here, I'm going to tell you a few things. First of all, this is an easy one to straighten up because this is the first season that the yard has fell into disarray. So finding the edge here was pretty easy. It wasn't that far back from the sidewalk. Now, this yard had been taken care of by a Mow N Go. That's where they pull up and they just mow it and go. They don't blow it off. They don't trim anything. Now, the guy that did this yard, he does a bunch of them around town. I know who he is. He has a Skag mower, and it's a zero turn, sit down, and he just zips over everything and leaves. He does have a trimmer with him. I don't know if he has a blower or not, but I've never seen him use the trimmer. He works at the Hershey warehouse in Pontoon Beach, Illinois in the evenings. I know this dude. And during the day, he just goes out and does these for the banks. And so whatever bank owns this just needs it knocked down every month or sometimes 2 months. And that's his gig. And he just does them all day long. Well, I wouldn't say all day long. He doesn't have as many lawns as I do. So I have 72 regular accounts. He probably has 40 of these to do per week, and it rotates because sometimes a house will eventually sell and then it's off his monthly list, right? And then maybe he'll pick up another one and another one. It's just hit or miss and random. So mine are steady, regular customers. He doesn't have a customer per se other than the bank, and so he just has no concern whatsoever. He doesn't blow anything off, and when the mower shoots it onto the nice yard next door, their driveway, their sidewalk, he just leaves it too. He doesn't concern himself with any trimming. Look at that, I'm uncovering the water meter right there. You know, right along that whole front edge. Okay, so I used to cut this yard in the 90s, hundreds and hundreds of times. It was Mr. and Miss Babb that lived there. And after he passed away, she lived probably 4 or 5 more years, and then she went to a nursing home. After that, it sold to a guy who was renting it out. And then the person that he rented it to had me do it for a couple of seasons. And then he moved out. And then ever since then, it's been people that just move in and they either take care of it themselves or, you know, they have like a friend that they already knew that did lawn care. And I used to take offense to that they didn't hire me, but a lot of times it's because they already knew someone. Like if some of my people move, and they've like taken me with them to their next property that was actually still in town. So things like that happen. Now, if you find a property like this and you're still new to trimming and edging, go for it. This is a good practice right here, trying to go around those little banisters and stuff. You have to get good at flipping it on its side and trying to avoid hitting things. And this would be a good practice because even if you hit it, it's not going to damage anything. But really teaches you to like find a way to fit your trimmer in little tight areas and get little stragglers that are sticking out around things. So, you can practice up, you can get a lot better. Now back to what I was saying. This yard has a little bit of sentimental nostalgia for me, so I do feel comfortable here because I've been on this yard a lot. There were actually hedges that went from that little railing all the way over to the other driveway back when I used to cut it. They're long gone because people have to maintain those things, and if you don't do that, they'll die and go away too. So yeah, I felt good out here. I felt like I was doing a good deed just for the neighborhood. My gosh, I hate that this was right next door to my pretty lawn. As soon as I pulled up to my property, I had to blow off the driveway, and I went down the front sidewalk from all the clippings from this disaster. And I knew it was coming because each week it would get taller and taller, and I kept thinking, well, it's about time for another Mow N Go next door. And sure enough, as I was driving up, I could spot it from a mile away, and I thought, oh boy. And so, have some pride in your work, even if you have to do foreclosed properties for banks, or you take on a job that is just super overgrown. You can still make it look really good when you're done. At least blow off the property, try and trim around some things, take some extra time, go back and forth over a couple of areas. I mean, have a little bit of respect for the neighborhood, the people next door, the people walking down the sidewalk, right? They could be in a wheelchair, they could be walking with a walker or a cane. Motorcycles don't need all that grass and clippings out in the street. Pick up a few pieces of trash instead of just chopping it up into the mix. I don't recommend doing Mow N Go's. To me, they are trashy.
That was a workout. Don't know why I did it, but I did it. I really just want to leave, but I can't do that. I can't leave that. Obviously, they can leave that, they can leave that, but I can't. So I'm going to rake it up and blow the rest of it up into the yard. And then all is well that ends well.
So now it's time to blow things off, and I am going to go in the street because that is very important. Get all of that stuff out of the gutter out there, up into the boulevard, onto the sidewalk, and then from the sidewalk into the yard. See that little piece of paper right there? Well, when I pulled up to cut my yard, there were 50 or 60 of those floating around. He just chopped up whatever was in the yard, and they were blowing into my yard. So I had to pick them out of mine. Then I walked over and picked some more up out of this yard. And when I got done here, I had to pick up even more. Now, as I'm going along here, I'm thinking to myself, okay, I spent some extra time here today, but I had the free time. I wanted to make the video, and I wanted to do a good deed for the neighborhood. And so I'm looking at this, I'm going, all right, if I get all these clippings up into the yard and they sit there for a week, when I come back next week and have more free time, I will just come over here and buzz over this. I will mow, but I will also blow it off, all right? I'm not going to do a Mow N Go. So that's all it's going to take, right? I can help out, and unfortunately, I'm not going to get paid for that, but I'm doing it for the neighborhood, and just, it's an OCD thing, and I mean, because I can do it, right? Who can do it? Well, me. I'm right here, so I might as well do it, if I got the time. Now, if I'm real busy, I might not have the time, but I feel like I'm the right man for the job. And so that's what's going to happen. Next week, when I cut the one next door, I will buzz over this front yard. And then in the future, I might take a whack around back and try to straighten that out too, just because this is a darn shame. Who wants to look at that? And over time, though, the grass should start to grow back in where he scalped it in areas, and everything will be okay because I am on the case.
Well, what do you think? The street's definitely better. Well, whoever cuts it next time, they can do a mow and go and it'll be okay. Well, I mean, except for the backyard. I ain't touching that one. Have fun, freaks.